This is Black Rabbit Hole, episode 2, take 1. Podcasting live from Daniel M. O'Connell Playground here in Queens. I'm Vance Lang, and this is episode 2, take 1, like I said before, right? How's everybody doing? Hope you enjoyed, what we call it, Juneteenth 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm out here podcasting live, like I said, from the park. Hopefully the sound's not too crazy, but again, it's that podcast world, and this how it is, and this is how it's gonna be. You know, I had said that when I started this, and the name is the Black Rabbit Hole and all that this was gonna be like not something that was like specifically black, but you know, to paraphrase James Baldwin, to be black and to be somewhat conscious is to be in like a constant rage, and it's like always something that you have to talk about to like say, you know, at least what the racial part is, and then what, you know, the other part is, or whatever the other part is. And there's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want to hit them too hard, but again, I want this podcast to you know, follow that thing of also being informative, contemporary, and whatnot, even though this is also just kind of an experiment for me to kind of just produce a podcast about me, and hopefully I'm really trying to just kind of tell my story in a sense, but be that. Again, it's a truck going by in the background, but you know, I got this pretty good mic here, so should be minimal leakage, but anyways, but just trying to make this a personal type podcast. So having said that, I watch the news and I experience the news just like the rest of you, and I have opinions and thoughts on things. I don't express them a lot, but you know, I do tend to you know, have a feeling one way or the other. A lot of big stories this week, one being the Bill Cosby situation, and again, I ain't going to speak too much on that. People have their opinions one way or the other. What I observe, what I see is sometimes there are people who project their own situations onto things, and from a lot of different angles. I just say that, and want to make it about them, I guess I'll say it in that sense, which, you know, in this case, with a lot of things regarding celebrities and famous people and whatnot, and basing your whole opinion and existence on whatever it is they say. But, you know, so again, people have a lot of projections and whatnot, but I'll just say this. You know who ain't made no comment? Mrs. Bill Cosby. She ain't saying nothing. I ain't gonna say too much more past that. Moving on. Sha'Carri. 2 weeks ago, ain't nobody know who this girl was. At least I didn't, and a lot of people did not know that there was this black girl that was about to make it to the Olympics. Yay, Sha'Carri. And then we find out she done smoked the weed, or she done hit the edible, and now she got to sit out. Hey, the rules be rules sometimes. Is it fair? Maybe not. But hey, that's what it is. She young. She got time to recover and do that thing. Do the you know, do it some more. Usain Bolt ran in 3 different Olympics. She got time. A lot of us are still out here smoking weed, and you know, some people don't because of their job, or they find ways around it, or whatever. You know, not passing no judgment on that girl. You know, run that 4x1, do your thing, and keep it clean. So the Olympics period, though, Miss I think her name is Barry, who had the standoff with the anthem, and whether or not they were supposed to be playing it at that particular moment. Her known activism already, you know. Again, it is what it is. She's there. She made it. The same thing with Sha'Carri. You know, shit. My old ass, I can't run a hot bath without breaking out into a sweat. So if that girl can run while she high and whatnot, do you. If that girl can make it to be the 3rd person on that stand, and then want to say, hey, you know what, I can't help it that I'm from America, so I'm a let my disdain a little bit be known, or my disagreements with America, and that's what she did. She did that. So, you know, hey, it is what it is. Another Olympic story. The ban on the swim caps. The Afro-friendly swim caps. Again, it's like, I ain't saying it's racial, but It looked like it because I think one of the things that the organizing committee said was it didn't fit the natural form of the head or something to that extent. Basically, to say what your thing does is abnormal, which you know. And later on during this podcast series, I'm going to actually later on during this podcast series, I'm actually going to introduce you guys to an attorney who specializes actually in child athlete abuse cases and things like that. So that kind of ties into this because there's a lot of things with female sports that are just kind of rank. You know, I don't know what other way to put it. So we're going to talk about that too. So, you know, there's that. And then with the whole swimming thing in general, if you're on my Facebook page, The Black Rabbit Hole, make sure you're on The Black Rabbit Hole. I posted a video of the synchronized swimming team, and I said, if white privilege was a sport. And, you know, and like water polo too, these things about the things with black people in swimming, and black people in water, and the lack of access to water. And there are a few videos, and I kind of fell into this rabbit hole, this black rabbit hole of looking for black synchronized swimmers. And it was hard to find. There were few and far in between. And again, just the differences in the video of, you know, one, there's appropriation from this. There's this white girl who's doing dance moves underwater while she's synchronized swimming. Whole different conversation, but kind of the same conversation. But then most of the videos that I could find that dealt with black people were either white people helping them out or the black girl in a dirty pool. It was just weird. So we're going to delve into some of that a little bit more in between episodes and whatnot. Make sure you're on the Facebook page, Black Rabbit Hole. That's where the conversations happen. Again, we're trying to spread this thing around the Twitch, the YouTube. Got a lot of stuff coming in this podcast. We're going to meet up with Lightskin Ken a little bit later. And we're also going to talk to my parents in just a moment, part 2 of that interview. I'm just gonna transition into that now. I'm gonna get off the black shit and get back to the podcast. So this is another piece of the conversation between my mom and dad, and then like me just kind of talking about learning, remembering what I would assume I guess it's a lot of people's first memories of life. It's probably the first thing you read or the first thing, you know, you smelled or something. The first thing to me I remember was reading the word beef. So I talk about that with my parents. We talk about the neighborhood we grew up in, some early racialisms in life, and other stuff like that. So we'll dip in on that conversation right now. So I'll start here at what I'll call my starting point of life. And the first thing I probably ever remember in life was reading the word beef at the IGA in Mount Vernon. I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I remember getting out of the car and looking up at the window and seeing the BEEF, beef. And then I remember reading everything else, walking through the store, getting back to the house. And the book, what book was it? Danny and the Dinosaur, I think, is the book that was at the house. And that was, I say I had to be 3 or 4 years old. It was a while between that and then getting to school. And then, you know, them putting a book in front of me and, okay, sun up. This is Buffy. This is Mac. They had a great day. Awesome. All right, what's next? And that was probably the beginning of my ADD too, but.
Because you was already reading when you went to school and you were already doing all that stuff. Reading, writing, thinking ahead of everybody else, you know, speaking your mind. So that was you. That was you. You and Victor were completely opposite. You know, he's a quiet person, and you were out there. Hey.
I remember the first house we had in Hillsdale on Hundley Road, and I got flashes of memories of the neighbor from Africa. Flashes of memories of Victor still got this scar on his leg when you dropped an air conditioner in the backyard. We was like moving the air conditioner. Pamela and Michael lived down the street.
Yeah.
You know, and then eventually we moved around to Galena. Y'all remember the Confederate flag incident?
Who had the flag? Was Jack?
It was the car. Yeah, it was Mr. Carney.
Okay.
And that was, and again, this wasn't, like I said, we were like some black militant family or something, but I remember, like being outside playing or whatever, and they were moving in. And again, as a kid, we had just moved in, so it's cool. Somebody else is moving in. And then I remember like walking out of the house one day and like the flag was up, and then mom like walked out behind me, and it was like, it wasn't a oh hell no, but it was like a or something. She went in the house and got daddy, and daddy walked over to the house and knocked on the door and walked in, and there was a conversation. And daddy and Mr. Carney walked out, and the flag came down, and then we were nice neighbors with the white people next door.
Exactly.
The flag still out somewhere.
Well, true that, but as a kid, I remember that experience, and it was never like, it wasn't like we had a conversation or anything about it afterwards. I still, came later to understand what a rebel flag was, but I remember hearing the words rebel flag and that it was something that wasn't about to happen. It's facing our house.
Out on Galena Drive.
Now look, I have all these little pictures I've been kind of pulling up. Like this is, if y'all can see that.
First drum, yeah.
The first drum set. Thank you.
Tell you about that drum too. We didn't know much about. We bought that drum over by Shaw High School. Some lady I guess her kid was in the Shaw High School band and sold us that drum. It was much too big for you at the time, really. It was a high school snare drum, and you were about 4 or 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old.
Couldn't have been, yeah.
But it was a high school snare drum.
Well, what it was, we was tired of getting the pots and pans out of the can. Went to the Mardi Gras, and you was just beating. Getting the pots out, just beating everything. So your dad just.
Having some technical difficulties here for a second. Sorry about that. Sorry, Gretchen and everybody watching. It's hot in the house. That's what's wrong. But yeah.
But it was a high school snare drum.
Well, what it was, we was tired of getting the pots and pans out of the can. Went to the Mardi Gras, and you was just beating. Getting the pots out, just beating everything. So your dad just decided we gonna just get him a drum and just, be done with this, because every time you come in the kitchen, we probably got some pictures of you beating a pot because you would just beat all the time, and so we was just like, we just don't, get drunk and be.
Mhm. And I don't know. Oh, wasn't no internet or nothing then. I don't know how we got up with that lady. We looked in the want ads.
Yeah.
Something we had to find out about her some way because we had just moved to Mobile, so we didn't know much about town really. But I recall it was somewhere near Shaw High School, and we bought that drum for that lady. I think she was kind of glad to get rid of it.
Pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
You just said, you alluded to you all had just moved to Mobile. When we grew up in Mobile, the area where we lived in Hillsdale Heights was, and you guys can fill me in on this, it was basically like a half and half of students that went to South Alabama living closer to the campus, and then the rest of Hillsdale was, I guess, mixed use housing where some people were able to buy the homes that they lived in and other people rented from the university, or the university owned a certain amount of houses. And
Mobile was kind of bad shape. There were people like living on the Hickory Street dump. People were poor downtown, had nowhere to live. That's when they just started building housing projects. So from downtown Mobile, where the center of everything was, the Hillsdale Heights was maybe a 20-minute drive or whatever. So they built that community for Black people, mainly people that worked at Brooklyn Air Force Base. It was affordable housing at the time.
mm-hmm.
But many of the people rejected it because they didn't want to live way out there. That's what they called it. So they started flocking back downtown. The houses started going down. So what happened to the state, it was a federal government project, so the state bought the property when they built University of South Alabama and decided to make it married student house because South Alabama at the time was just commuter school. Didn't have any dorms set up and all that, so it was a commuter school. So it was just fine for them, just go in there and fix the houses up a little bit. And, students could rent them very cheap. I think our rent was like $112 a month. And then some of the people, well, you'll know, but in the front of Hillsdale had stayed. Some of them stayed and bought their house. They could buy the house, but they couldn't buy the property because the property belonged to the state. So that's why they're still in those houses right now.
Yeah, so we were in Hillsdale, and having said that, if I recall, everybody immediately around us was white.
Yeah, it was.
But we had to make them give us that house. They didn't want that.
So we had the Carneys, and then the lady that moved in on the other side with the 2 or 3 daughters, and then the lady across the street that worked at the pet store. I remember we had some. I had some racialisms with Nathan and Carl, which was funny because they said something. I think he might have said it to Victor, but something about us being slaves in our mama's belly or something. These things. I didn't think of anything of it as a kid.
I remember you saying he said something because it didn't make sense to me being slaves. I remember you telling me something about that, but it didn't.
But you see, that's just that goes to the idea of racism. Those little boys had to be taught that.
Yeah,
they didn't. That wasn't something because they were too young to even be in school almost. I think they were younger than all of them.
They were like right in between me and Victor. The oldest was a little younger than Victor, but older than me, and then the younger one was younger than me. And I think he was the one that was saying it.
And then down the street, down next to Leon, there was a little guy named Matthew.
Me and Matt that was my friend. And then I remember there was a black lady down on the corner, Miss Wimbush.
Miss Wimbush still
okay.
Wimbush is still there.
That was the older guy at the end of the street.
Mr. Eddie.
Mr. Eddie.
Eddie Chandler.
And then we're gonna go down this whole street here. The Tuckers, Brian Tucker, Brian and Marie.
Yeah.
Down at the end. But we had a nice little mostly, like you said, immediately around us was white people.
Yeah.
But again, it was nothing that was to me abnormal. That's just where we lived.
Remember the Goods? Remember the
The
Goods?
Goods guy and Susan Good. I had to sit around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I remember after they moved, we went across the bay. We made a trip across the bay to visit them. Across the bay. We're going to stop right there. Across the bay. For my folks who are watching this from Mobile, appreciate y'all watching it. Y'all know what across the bay is. For my people, anyone else that's watching this, if you're not from Mobile, and again, I live in New York City now, so the best way I can describe it to my New York people is like New York City is the metro area, like Mobile is the metro area, and then Long Island, Westchester, suburbs, and where people from the metro area, they make too much money to live in the metro area, and so they start to move to the suburb area, and that's what across the bay is, kind of, in a sense, if you put it that way. And that's how I describe Long Island and Westchester to people from Mobile. I say it's like those are like the Baldwin counties of New York City. So when people move across the bay, generally to get away from Mobile, kind of. But that's a whole nother story. Definitely a whole nother story. But yeah, we're gonna I got a little more film on Mom and Dad. You can see the quality was not great with the signal. Bandwidth was acting up. So I'm gonna give you the third part of that in the next episode and a couple other things. But let these cars pass. Again, we doing this live. We doing it live, baby. This podcast is gonna go a lot of different places. I'm hoping to have some type of digital content creator consortium here, where every day I can bring you at least a few minutes of some type of different entertainment, education, just chill out, whatever it is. Like I said before, I'm working on getting my legal person in here, working on getting like some music people in here, having some really highbrow conversations, and everything in between. And speaking of highbrow conversations and everything in between, I'm gonna check in with my man Lightskin Ken. And like I said, this podcast is going all over the place, so I ain't even gonna explain that too much right now. You got to just stay engaged. If you know, if you don't, you don't. But I'm gonna bring in Lightskin Ken, and we're gonna chop it up a little bit in the Black Rabbit Hole. Black faces in these black spaces, man. That's what I'm trying to do digitally, man. So like, I'm trying to just.
It's like 49 million black people in the United States. We got a lot of people, man, and a lot of people we got to learn how to connect with. The internet done brought us a way to connect, where you can be in Mobile, Alabama, and still be in New York, LA, South Dakota, North Dakota. And that's what we got to get on. Louis Farrakhan had a Million Man March twice. If Louis Farrakhan would have been, let's just say he just said this $10 thing I'm talking about. Let's say he got all 1 million of them people to commit to $10 a month, okay? It's like $100 million, $120 million a year. You know what I mean? It's so many ways we can connect with this thing. I want to have a Million Man economic march. That's one of my goals. I want to do that. If we got black people to gather at the Washington Memorial Monument, whatever it is, up there twice, we should be able to do it with something to gain. You know what I mean?
That's a real forward motion.
If he got them million people that came up there, I know all of them could put up $10.
They had to do it to get there.
You hear me? I know it, right? If we know they had to do it to get there, and they got it, if they didn't do it to get there, you miss a lunch, you miss a drink at the club or something, and you put that $10 up for the sake of development, infrastructure, because that's what we missing, infrastructure. We not sick. We dead last. Our people, we got to be teachers. You know what I mean? We got to be teachers, man, and not be aggressive teaching them, not belittling them, trying to teach them, but teach them in a way that they can accept it, man, and be receptive, man. And, it ain't going to change, and everybody ain't going to come. And hell, I don't want everybody to come.
Like, even just being in the news and, like seeing how people react to certain stories some way. And yeah, I'd be guilty of it too or whatever, but like, and then also being able to see things both ways, the little weed girl, the little track girl, go from ain't nobody knowing her ass on Tuesday to she in the Olympics on Thursday, and now she just smoke weed on Saturday.
And we hate her.
And then they like, you know,
a lot of us wanted to hate her anyway because of her hair. The most of the people that had a problem with her when they found out she smoked weed, they did it. A lot of us do a lot of stuff for social media. A lot of those people like that, because of her hair and her nails, they wanted to hate her, but they congratulate her. So when she messed up, it was real easy for them to come in and say to a kid. You know what I mean? And that's what's wrong with us, man. We got a big gap between the educated and uneducated, between the hood and the suburbs. If we're not able to bridge that gap right there, we're gonna forever be gone. It worked both ways, man. It's light and it's dark. You know what I mean? And to get it going in this world, you got to take people that are systematically educated and street smart. You know what I mean? Because America's ran by the streets. They ran by tyranny, murder, and all this other stuff that they look on the news and see. That's what America ran by. Ain't no non-rebel gonna lead no rebellion, because the non-rebels are too systematic. They keep on thinking that it's gonna happen through the same system. It's not. It's not. It's just not gonna happen. I'm not gonna take you capture in my house, hold you hostage, manipulate you, and then let you take over. I'm gonna give you a little bit and get a lot. And that's what happened with civil rights, and that's what happened with everything to 1865 or this what do you want to call it, Juneteenth. I'm not free. And my people ain't either. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna, we live in a bunch of delusion, man. Just last year, 2020, Trump and the pandemic had us boycotting 4th of July. This year, 4th of July was back in full effect for you African colored Americans. I don't know whose side I'm on right now. I ain't gonna lie.
Bro, look, and I ain't saying it. Look, my whole thing, I try to be objective, as a journalist, and look at both sides, and I just try to stay with the truth. And this is why I'd be angry, this is why I'd be angry, like, watching, like, these Republicans and even the Democrats too, and, like, when they just sit there and say the bullshit out loud.
And people don't listen to it. They don't receive it. These people spit in our face often, and we look right over it. We look over like it's not even happening. And it's partly because we have a lot of trust in, if the teacher ain't teaching it, the preacher ain't preaching it, and the news media not reporting it, it can't be true, or it can be true. And that's a part of that system, man. And that's what we got to understand, man. In 1921 and before, in all them other little towns that they had, them folks couldn't vote. They didn't have no credit, and they weren't part of no system, but they own, and that's how they was able to flourish. And until we get that mentality back there,
Right.
Yeah. If we don't, until we get that mentality back, we dead. It's not gonna happen at the polls. It's not gonna happen in the pews. It's not gonna happen in the pews or the polls. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna. Not a politician or a pastor. You know what I mean? I've been here 45 years, man, and I ain't seen it work yet. I'm about. I ain't saying quit a plan. I'm saying, but you got to reform and reconstruct at some point if it ain't working. After 20 years, if something ain't working, you got to switch something up. And we 20 plus years of hundreds of years of whenever they gave you the first vote, right? We that long into this, and it's like a bad domestic violence relationship, man. We just keep getting beat mentally and physically, abused, and we keep on loving our abuser. And we talk about women that don't leave these situations. You know what I'm saying?
I always use that T.I. quote from some shit from his first album when he said, "If it ain't a trap, then what we doing in it?" I'd be up here again, every borough riding through these, the projects and shit, Queensbridge, and like talking about just the projects and the, New York Housing Authority amounts again of people that are just warehoused really and just stuck together in these no-win situations. And it's like, you mean to tell me that these projects been here for 20 years and you can't figure out how to at least make them cool, at least make the schools good enough, and make this city good enough where, like, we ain't got these $1 billion buildings with homeless people sitting at the doorstep?
That's another thing, man. This conversation go all day, man. But I'm gonna tell you, that's another thing we gotta learn how to do, man. Importing and exporting, and start getting these places and building our own manufacturing companies where we can do the same thing that the Americans do in Bangladesh and all them other places. Those sweatshops they got over there, they're American funded. You know what I mean? This just what's going on. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and it's for a little bit of money, man. So once we start to understand that and stop worrying about these are three things that black people are on right now: land, trucking, and crypto, and the stock market. Right? That's the hot thing right now. Right? Listen, they told me this right here: if a bunch of them run into it, get away from it. That ain't how you gonna get $100 million. That's not how you gonna get $10 million. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's real talk. And
Look, that's why I'm trying to figure out this stream thing, man. So where you know I'm putting up an hour every day.
hold up, shout out to my man. We down here in Pritchard, Alabama. Now this is one of the black hoods, the first black man to bring a civilized
Hey,
shake joint to the city. Lotus, man. I'm uptown, but I'm at Lotus, man, and that's what it is, man. Shout out to my man, Big Ed Williams, for putting it down here. And we're gonna be live tonight. What you say with Man to May, Poison the News, 251, man. You hear me? Yeah, man. Hey, look, man, I'm gonna holler at you, man. Let me get ready for this show, man. I'm gonna talk to you later, bro.
for sure, Lightskin Ken. Appreciate you coming by, man. We'll holler at you.
All good.
All right, man.
All right.
Definitely great to chop it up with my homie Lightskin Ken. We used to do a lot of crazy radio commercials together. That's a whole nother story. But again, good to see. I'd love to see people doing positive things. We trying to, like I said, with this podcast and other things, just trying to get more black faces into more of these digital spaces and taking advantage of what's here for us, and trying to get our spots. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure you subscribe to the Black Rabbit Hole podcast on Google, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You should be able to search the Black Rabbit Hole. YouTube, and also Twitch. Twitch is where I'm really working on trying to get this kind of getting a weekly thing going. But like I said, this is all a work in progress, and I hope that you're getting something out of it, or at least getting as much as I am out of it, just getting this out of me. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks for the podcast. Again, stay engaged with all the Black Rabbit Hole channels. I'll be doing lives on my Facebook page, again, just trying to spread these positive digital vibes. I'm Vance Lang. You're in the Black Rabbit Hole. We'll catch you next time. Holler.